Hi, I'm Alison. If you haven't met me before, I am the owner and director of ICE, the Institute of Culinary Excellence. So today's class is going to be cutting a julienne, très difficile, very difficult. It is going to be a very thin strip. Now, there's arguments all over the place about, is the strip 4 centimetres, is it 5, is it 6, is it 7? Do you know what? You've got to ask your chef. If you're cutting a julienne for garnish, and it's a very fine strip, like a very fine matchstick strip, ask what julienne they want. I was taught 4 centimetres long by 2 millimetres cube. Now that makes quite a large stick, I must say, not lengthwise, but thickness-wise. Let me show you the thinnest julienne I can cut, and I'm going to cheat because I'm going to use leek. Nature's already done the slices, so that's the easiest one to start on. And for you at home as well, it's easy to practice. So let me just cut that leek that we cut earlier. And we've got all these lovely slices already done. The only thing we've got to do is work out what length we want, okay? Take the centre out of the leek because things become a bit thicker down there. So we're going to use these lovely slices, look. And I'd say they're about 1 mil thick. It's gorgeous. So we're going to take off maybe 2 or 3. That's too long. And it's also, it's impossible to cut that long. So let's go to around about, let's say maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 centimetres long, because I'll tell you what, leek and spring onion and carrot and capsicum curls if you put it in ice water. And that looks gorgeous as a classic old-fashioned traditional garnish on something, you know, like salad-wise or whatever. The curling up of, you've got some poached scallops, for example, and you learn about food presentation and garnishes. A little bit of that as a crunch and as an added colour, added nutrients. It follows all the rules and it looks beautiful. It brightens up the dish and it shows off your skills as a chef. So let's go with about 6 to 7 centimetres. Now, I always think that cutting it on that side is harder. And this is like the inside of your capsicum or your calamari. This is the outside, but you do need to do the outside because you need to flatten it. Otherwise, you've got this curve that's dangerous, all right? So let's flatten this. Now, how thin do I go? As thin as I can, all right? So use the technique that we showed you earlier. And remember to engage with the board every time so that you are having your slices disengaging from one another. When you get to the end, it is not worth the risk of a fingernail or a finger. That is the best julienne I can cut today. I have done it better than that in my previous life, but right now that's as good as it gets with my fingers the way they are. All right, so again, you're going to go down to make sure that everything you do is the same length. So you don't just go chopping and changing halfway through. You choose the length and you cut all of your lengths and you stick with it so that every one of those is precision. Now, if you want, you can go to 4. If you feel, you know, that you can handle it, you can then cut and just make sure that you engage. This is a good example of my fingers doing this elevation. So basically, I'm in control of my knife and my fingers are hardly moving because I don't want this to be thick. I want this to be thin, right? This is julienne garnish. So we don't want fingernail in there. So what I'll do is get rid of those thicker pieces. That was the centre. And then I've got this beautiful julienne. Now, that is easy, right? I cheated because nature's done all that work for me. Great, I love it. But what about if you've got to make one of these babies into a julienne? Now, wipe the smile straight off your face when you get these. Because the capsicum is hard to do, but who wants a garnish that's just white? I mean, it might be the easiest thing to do, but this is garnish, remember? I mean, what about that on scallops? What about that on something white? It's pointless. So I'm going to show you the Julienne of Capsicum, which is one of the hardest things to do. Before that, I will do the Julienne of Carrot for you, because that is also tricky, but we do the whole block system that we've learnt before, all right? So let's just top and tail our carrot. I need to get rid of my leek because I don't want it on my board. It does have an onion fragrance odour, and it does make you cry if the leeks are big and old and strong, but you know what? Again, just get it off the board. Make sure you've got no leek on here, and your board and bench is ready to go for your next job, and that includes your knife as well. Now, we all go, I bet you're all just nodding and going, yeah. You come in the kitchen, you completely forget that, and the board is like a multicoloured swap shop of parsley and capsicum and carrot and all sorts of stuff. It's not cool. You need to just concentrate on the job in hand. Julienne of leek was nature's gift to you. It's easy, right? We're going to do something slightly harder. We're going to go with a carrot, and then I'm going to finish off with the finale of me cutting the capsicum julienne. Don't get too excited. All right, top and tail. Now, there's no point in going too small with this. So what I'll suggest we do is use the bigger ends of the carrots and save the smaller ends for something else. Because, again, you know, you're going to waste too much. If you square down that tiny bit, you're going to have this much left. to cut. So let's go with the same length that we did with our leek. Let's go with a long julienne, and we'll go as thin as we can. All right, and I'll show you the classic one as well. So we're going to go there. We're going to cut this around about the same length, and we're going to go to that. And I'll show you why I don't use the smaller end of the carrot, because this one enables me to cut my safe base, cuts off again. Again, don't forget, you've got to square this off, and you're squaring it. So you've got these, see this little end? I was slack there. Let's cut this a little bit finer, because I want that corner to be pointed and square. So look how much already's come off. Imagine what's going to come off of this. I'm not using that, it's too much waste. I'm going to use the bigger pieces. So this goes into my soup or my stock bowl. Put my onion tops in there as well, if you remember. All right, so now I need to cut. I have to do this by hand. You can use a mandolin, you know, not Captain Corelli's mandolin. You use a slicing machine, and that's okay. I want you to learn this way, because what happens if you go somewhere and there's no slicing machine? You're going to look like an idiot. So you need to learn this. You need a very sharp knife. Make sure your knife is as sharp as you can get it. All right. What you're going to do now is you've got to cut 1 mil. All right. So I will cut the thinnest wafer thin slice I possibly can, and that's going to be my base. All right. 1 mil, 1 mil. All right. So 1 mil, perfect. Slice after slice after slice every time. If your knife is not sharp like mine is, you're going to slip. Let me show you the slip. And you're not going to have the right slice. And that means I now have to square this off. So you need a knife that's going to have those little invisible teeth, which is what happens with a sharp knife. You use a steel to smooth them slightly, but you've still got that grip. We need that grip to start off our slice, and we need pressure all the way down. Otherwise, we do this. All right? The last one is probably the safest. Get rid of that. All right, we've got these amazing thin slices of carrot. I'm going to layer up 2 at a time. Just cross over here, and I'm going to go back to that cut, but I'm going to be a bit more precise with the carrot because you can see it. This is going to be 1 millimetre strips, nice and slow, nice and straight. Look at those. Perfect. There's a little one in there that's not so perfect. Oops. Strike, knocked out my carrot. All right, so I'm going to do again with this. So this is my 1 mil thick and my 6 centimetre long. When I say 1 mil thick, I should say 1 mil cubed. Beautiful, look at that. I love it. So carrot's introduced in a different colour, all right? You've got your leek, which is white, you've got your orange, and when that starts to mix, you see you're getting nicer colours in your julienne, which is what you need for a garnish. What's the point of garnishing with white? You know, it's not, I mean, I suppose it's okay if you've got some green sauce or you've got some dark dish, but the idea of a julienne is to add texture, colour, nutrients, and a brightness to the dish, isn't it? That's what we do with a garnish, all right? Okay, so that's that. That's a really cool, I guess, classic, sort of classic julienne. Not quite. That's a good julienne, let's just say. Let me show you the classic, which is 4 centimetres long, all right? Which is not as long as that one. And we're going to cube this down again. So flat base, again, flat bottoms, girls. All right, and we're going to cube it right down. These go into our soup trimmings, which is going to be made. Now, the classic was 4 centimetres long. I'm just going to make sure that's nice and straight. And 2 mil cubed. This is bigger, right? So 2 mil is like this. There's not much difference, but there is when you flop it down like so. You're going to go 2 mil thick, slightly bigger. And there's a good reason for me doing this, is because I then show you how to cut the classic brunoise, which is a 2 millimetre cube, all right? So that's thicker, you know? Agreed? This is thin, this is thick. All right, so, and also shorter. So this is the classic julienne. One more. There, see, it's different. Look, that is the classic julienne. That has become the julienne because we want it to be as fine as possible, you know? It's just what we do. It's contemporary. We mess around with classics, but you know what? I'm all good with you messing around with classics, but you've got to know the traditional first. If you know the traditional first, then you can mess it up, right? But don't just break the rules just for the sake of it. Learn this. So 4 centimetres and 2 millimetres cubed, all right? So it's like a little matchstick. Now, the thing is this, the argument is this, that you should be able to line up a classic julienne and then make a classic brunoise. The brunoise of onion was a random, it was fine, random. This is not going to be random, this is 2 mils again, all right? Look, watch, 2 mil. And every one of those dice, I swear to God, every one of those little dices has exactly the same cube. I'm lying, of course, because you can't see it, but now Matt's really close so you can see it. But look, they are pretty perfect. Now, that classic brunoise would be floating around in a clear consommé. It would be garnishing something. It would be sprinkled on a white plate. People can see it. This is random, curled and beautiful. This is classic and that's classic. That's the brunoise, that's the julienne, that's me. All right, 3 different things. Let's do the hardest one, all right, the hardest one. So let's get my little brunoise out the way. And you can see why we don't cut that. I mean, blimey. Imagine the wage cost and the wastage in that. But let's get it into a bowl so we can see it in a minute. And let's get some of that lovely julienne into our bowl of leeks. You've got this gorgeous mix here. I'm going to put my capsicum in there as well. And if I had shallots or the darker end of the leek, I'd add another colour in there, green. So green, red, yellow capsicum, white leek, carrots. It looks beautiful. And it's garnished. It's got to look good, all right? That one is my little classic julienne and my classic brunoise. All right, best way I can show you how to do this. The best way, the easiest way of doing this is to cut one side. So you've got, again, I've got to practice what I preach there. I've got carrot there. I need to make sure my board is cleaned down. All right, brunoise for days. All right, so what we need to do is, if you do cut down a capsicum in 4 ways, you go once, you go twice, you can go 3, and you can even go 4, and then you cut this bit and you throw it away. Basically, that's the easiest way I can show you how to do a capsicum. Cut 4, and you've got these capsicum cheeks. Now, what we need to do is get rid of some of this white stuff inside and level these off. So we're using a different technique, very similar to when I was doing the celery earlier. We're going to use our knife technique where we use the knife for a grip, take the hands out the way, and cut these. Again, I'm not wasting this. This can go in a salad. But that part in the centre is bitter. That's going to go in our compost. This bit we can use for something else. So just take away some of that white centre and use that sharpness. If you have to take a square off the end to get it, you can do this and take a beautiful slice to give you that piece here. Now that's too thick for julienne. I'll show you how you do it. All right. So these little bits here, we're going to go into salads. Not going to waste it. But the inside bit and the seed bit into our lovely compost. Beautiful. All right. Now, so what I've been taught to do in the past is to trim this off, trim off that end, because that's wobbly and it's really hard to get a grip, all right? So get a grip, everybody. All right, now watch. See this bit here? So you start off with almost like the block, almost. So let's go down and cut this into what we need for our julienne. So take the knife and let it just grip. So you're going to take off, the first one is a trim, just going to get it flat. So it might only be a little bit coming off, but it's flattening it out, yeah? That's in the compost. Now, let me do this. Make sure that's square, and then push this down, and then take the knife, and you're going to make 2 pieces out of this. So keep the knife up so you can see it coming through. Again, just take off a bit of that depth, and then we end up with a thin piece here, and a little bit too thick there, but take it through, all right? Like so. Let me do another one. Basically flatten it. Take off that first bit, which makes it uneven, all right? And then, yeah, I think you can probably take off a little bit more depth here because it's a little thick in one area. So just take off a little bit more, and then we'll end up with this lovely flat piece of red capsicum that's going to brighten up that lovely julienne for us. All right? Yeah, so basically just wafer thin. Look, you need a sharp knife to do this, I can tell you. Perfect. All right. All right. So this stuff here can go in compost, and if it's a nice piece, it can go in salad. Beautiful. Let's get rid of that. Now, I'm going to leave the length because we've got groovy, long julienne there. So I'm going to cut this julienne with this piece here. If you think you can go a bit further, you can take a little bit more off, but you mustn't go through it, obviously. Otherwise, you'll have a great big hole in it, just like I did before, but we'll forget that bit. Don't say anything. All right, so I think that might be a little bit too long. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Just take that off. I don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. Let's hope you don't have a sore thumb at the end of this by cutting it, but it's an old-fashioned saying. All right, now we're just going to make a julienne cut across that lovely inside of the capsicum, using that same technique, the same bridge of the fingers, and this is easy if you know how. All right, so but look what happens when you add that to this bowl. Suddenly, it becomes full of life. Look at it, it's gorgeous. So you have to do it. It's painstaking, but you really need to add the capsicum julienne for colour. And let's add another little bit here. I'm just going to take a little bit off this. It's a little bit too thick for me. All right, and I'll take off that other outside. Remembering all the rules, you know, nice and square. nice pieces, but as thin as you can. And you want to use the redness, but the harshness of that shiny side on the knife makes it really hard to cut. So turn him over. All right, gorgeous. So that is a lovely julienne. Now if you put that in the fridge with some water and ice, add your shallot, the green part of the shallot, or the green part of the leek, you're going to get 3 or 4 different colours in it. It's beautiful.